When I sang here in Northern Ireland, you can call me anything you like, but don't call me too early in the morning. Well, my guest this afternoon certainly gets called very early in the morning. I'm delighted, after I don't know how long, to welcome, as I say, in the flesh to Downtown Radio, the gentleman we've talked with from a studio in London somewhere over the years. In fact, last week we were talking. Today he's here. I'm delighted to see him. Dr. Hilary Jones, welcome to Downtown.
Thank you, Lynda. It's lovely to be here.
Well, I feel like I know you.
Well, yes, as I said when I came in, it's like meeting my long-lost sister at long last. We've exchanged jokes about premenstrual syndrome, for goodness sake, down the airwaves.
I know we have. We've talked about all sorts of medical problems, and today we're going to talk about one that is not a medical problem if we do something about it, something that will help us in a moment or two. It's all to do with that F word, fibre.
Yeah. You know, talking of which, I think Billy Connolly and Jasper Carrott have done more to encourage the British to talk about their bowels than anybody else. I mean, they have put, but through humour, through lavatorial humour, encourage people to say, yes, it's okay to talk intestine. And I think it was Jasper Carrott who said that after 3 days on the F-plan diet, he understood what F stood for. You can actually have too much fibre if you have too much too quickly, because people will go to their doctor and the doctor says, yes, you need a bit more fibre in your diet. And people go mad. They have nothing but fibre for a week and wonder why they're feeling bloated and gassy. But people, on the whole, do need more fibre. It's just that the body needs time to adapt to it. And if you increase your fibre intake over a month or so, you'll actually get all the benefits without any of the uncomfortable side effects, shall we say.
Exactly. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But as I said, you get called pretty early in the morning.
I do.
What is it? You were on television this morning.
I was.
You didn't change.
I did.
You did?
I'd actually changed.
Well, it was my Florence said, I think he's got on the same shirt that he had on this morning.
I left the studio at 9:10 to get a flight at 10:30, so I did pretty well getting through the London traffic.
You did.
And I didn't change between 9:10 and 10:30, but I did change between 7:35 when I did an earlier doc spot and 9:10.
Good heavens.
So,
what was your life like, Hilary? I mean, what time do you go to bed at night?
Well, last night about 11:30.
That's late.
So one burns the candle at both ends to some extent, but then I catch up with sleep at weekends. And I think that because I actually have, on average 5 to 6 hours sleep a night, I actually sleep very soundly.
Yeah.
And when I used to get more hours opportunity to sleep, I didn't sleep very well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a cure for insomniacs out there. Sleep less.
Yeah. I always said I need my 8 hours, and I've proved over the years that I don't need the 8 hours. The more sleep I get, the more sleep I want, and
Exactly
I am
right.
running around at half steam the next day if I have too much sleep.
It's true.
Let me go through a typical day. I mean, what time do you get out of bed? What time do you get in the car to go to the studio?
Well, I generally set my alarm clock for about 5:15. Get up, get under the power shower, which is the only thing that wakes me up in the morning, and then off I go, driving up to London, and I do my stint in London. And then it depends. Lately, I've been doing a program for Meridian called Loud and Clear, which is a live debate program on a Thursday and a Friday. That's good fun. It's stimulating. You never know what anyone's going to say. You might have to sort of force them apart when they're wrestling on the floor, or you might have to say, for goodness sake, somebody say something.
Right.
It's one of those types of shows. But other days I'll be doing something like this, coming over here and meeting some of you lovely people over here, drinking your Guinness, that kind of thing, and talking fibre. So I'm very privileged in that my life is very varied. There are so many different medical subjects, and everyone's fascinated in medicine, even their bowels.
Absolutely. What
There's
about
lots of variety.
the twins? When do you get to spend quality time with
Quality
them?
time. Well, as often as I can. I mean, they're
You
such a
drag
lovely...
them up onto the television. I've seen them up in the early hours of the morning with your wife sitting there looking wonderful.
That's right. I mean, they are so wonderful. At 18 months, they're smiling. They're beginning to vocalize, as they say. They're beginning to talk back at you and give you a bit of personality back. You're actually seeing some fruits of all the labours you've put in, sort of changing the nappies and getting up at night. And it's just a wonderful age to have them. So I'll get back home as often as I can. And if I can include them in my daily life and say, well, we're doing an item on premature baby units, let's have them up there
That's right.
and show what the NHS can do. I mean, I always say to anybody who's maybe having a child or has had a premature baby, that the healthcare under the NHS is absolutely fantastic, second to none.
Yours were premature, weren't they?
Yeah, very
premature.
12 weeks.
Yes. and it was sort of touch and go for a little while.
It always is at that kind of prematurity, and of course twins as well makes it more risky, but thank goodness they've done absolutely brilliantly.
I noticed that in all the bump that arrived about the F word, fibre, we had various bits and pieces of little pamphlets, which I've managed to lose in the meantime. No, here we are. And there is a very special piece within the pamphlets, which is all about folic acid, and indeed what every woman needs to know before getting pregnant, before becoming pregnant.
That's right. I mean, spina bifida, which is the condition whereby there is a deformity of the spine with damage to the nervous system beneath, is still not an uncommon condition. It's still relatively common. And we know that if a woman has folic acid, when she's planning to become pregnant, she can reduce the incidence of spina bifida happening very considerably. So folic acid is an important part of anybody's diet, but particularly for women who are considering starting a family. And one of the best sources of folic acid is the breakfast cereal. And if she's going to become pregnant, then she's going to know that fibre is also important to avoid piles and constipation, all the nasty, unpleasant symptoms that you sometimes can get in pregnancy. So for many reasons, pregnancy, pregnant women ought to consider that breakfast meal as being very important. It is. It's good for iron, it's good for vitamins, including folic acid, and the fibre that everybody needs.
Right. Do you think nowadays that women in general are thinking a little more about the time before they become pregnant, where they are getting their bodies into good shape before they decide to begin a family?
Yes, very much so. What we call preconceptual care can definitely improve the health of the baby to come. For example, if people thought in advance about rubella vaccination, we wouldn't have any rubella children. In fact, we're seeing far fewer babies affected by congenital rubella with the visual handicaps, the hearing handicaps, the brain problems, the disability that comes with that, because women are thinking, I better just check that I am immune to rubella, so that in case I get rubella in pregnancy, I know that I'm protected and my baby's protected. They're doing that. They're making sure that they're not anemic. They're making sure that they're not too overweight. And by and large, women are embarking upon pregnancies in a much healthier state than was formerly the case. Yes, and the other significant thing is that they're stopping smoking when they're trying to conceive, which helps their fertility and makes for a bigger and healthier baby when they have the baby. So that's important too.
It's all good news then that they are thinking in that direction. Hilary, stay with me. We will return in a moment, and honestly, we will be talking about that F word, the fibre, and finding out. He still hasn't told me when, or indeed if he has breakfast. Lynda Jayne! The doctor. It's coming up to 21 minutes past 3. It's lovely when guests notice the little bits of trouble you go to. Indeed, Hilary, you did notice that one. I'm delighted, absolutely delighted. Now, we're talking today, because Dr. Hilary's in the province, to tell us all about the joys of fibre. And if we do take enough fibre, because F-I-B-R-E, the words, the letters which make up the word fibre, have been broken down into, listen to this, folks, fibre intake brings rewards externally. Ah, that's a good one, isn't it? We'll talk, as I say, in a moment a bit more about that. But I've just been talking to a lady very recently called Nora. And Nora is listening in to us, Hilary, this afternoon. And she's had a pretty rough time over the last number of years. But she just wanted me to say to you that she also feels that today the health service and indeed GPs seem to understand so much more about certain conditions than they did, say, back in the 40s or indeed the 50s. So she's agreeing with you on that one, the way you said about the premature babies, for example.
Sure. Well, that's very nice to hear. I'm sure that if our population could go abroad more and see how much better we are for a health service than exists in other countries, we'd all be a lot more grateful than we are. I mean, it's easy to knock the health service and complain about waiting lists, but we are so lucky when people are scraped off the road after car accidents, when people go in as an emergency with their appendix. 1 in 6 of the population go in with their acute appendicitis. We have such an excellent health service with the workers within it doing absolutely fantastic things, working beyond the call of duty, working overtime for very little pay and often very little thanks. We should thank our lucky stars, because overseas I've seen it. I've seen it, the healthcare in the States, I've seen it abroad, and it ain't what it is here. And we're actually very lucky. So I'm very glad that I'm sorry that Nora's had such a bad time, but I wish her very well. And it's nice to hear that she thinks that we've moved on. We certainly have, not just in terms of drugs and what drugs can do, but in terms of surgery techniques, equipment for making diagnoses, and giving people a better quality of life. Not just prolonging life, but giving them a better quality of life.
Yes, because that's the important thing. I mean, there's not much point in having a long life. It's going to be absolutely rotten if we can make it better. Now, to get back to this F word, you still haven't answered the question. When do you have breakfast?
I have breakfast whenever I can get it.
At least you're honest.
It's sometimes, picking a banana in the car on the way to work. And of course, that's actually very healthy in itself because it's high carbohydrate, high fiber, and it releases the carbohydrate slowly from that fiber once it hits the stomach. So you actually feel satisfied all morning long till lunchtime. But if you've got the time, if you can combine something like that with a high fiber cereal, that's about tops really, because that's going to keep you satisfied. It's going to fill you up. You're going to avoid the hunger pangs that you otherwise get at 11 o'clock. And people who eat a lot of fiber actually take less fat in their diet. It actually stops the fat being absorbed as well. So they're healthier that way.
Oh, good. You see, I used to think of these breakfast cereals that one would shovel down with, you didn't actually like them much and you had to eat them because mummy said so. And in years gone by, they weren't very attractive. But I mean, nowadays they are getting much more, they're much tastier, I think.
They are. I mean, you're talking about the cardboard mache that we all remember. And of course, I mean, that's the thing about that is you don't have to have it every day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life, in which case, I mean, anything would be boring if you had to do that. But if you have that now and again, or mix it with the cereal of your choice, something a little bit more sort of tasty. If you had something to sweeten it, natural sweeteners like raisins or, some fruit, apple, banana, then you're actually going a long way to offsetting the kind of foods that we tend to eat because we're all busy, the fast foods that we eat, the high fat, low fiber, low residue diet that we have the rest of the time. So what I would say to any busy person who eats on the run and tends to get a bit of indigestion is make sure that you have enough fiber in your daily diet by having, say, a bowl of cereal in the morning or even last thing at night, just to give yourself the fiber on which the bowel can work. Because if you do that, you stave off things like irritable bowel syndrome, diverticulitis, which a lot of elderly people get, constipation, hemorrhoids, you name it.
Constipation. I mean, when we're talking down this studio line, we talk quite frankly, and I want to talk
we
quite
have no
frankly,
inhibitions, do we?
Absolutely none. I want to know, and this is a question I am told by certain people in my household, namely my husband, that I'm not normal. To put it mildly. I say, why do you think I'm not normal?
All husbands say that to their wives.
Well, you see, constipation is something that we don't like talking about, but we're going to talk about it now. What is normal? How often should people actually go?
I'm very glad you asked me that because there's actually no such thing as normal. There is
Thank heavens.
You can't say it is twice a day or it's once a day because it's different for different people.
Good.
Some people will go quite happily once a week. And as long as they're not uncomfortable, they don't have a problem. Other people will go twice or 3 times a day, and if that's normal for them, and they've always been like that, that's normal for them. Now, it only becomes a problem if it gives symptoms, if people are uncomfortable, if they feel that they're getting headaches or abdominal cramps. It is true to say that people who don't go perhaps more than every second day run a higher chance of developing problems like diverticulitis and like irritable bowel syndrome. But, it's not in itself abnormal, and they oughtn't to be made to feel that they're abnormal just because of their bowel habit regularity. I just read an interesting paper in a journal called Gastroenterology, which is a scientist's way of saying stomach and guts, which actually links personality with bowel habits. So that what it said is if you're an outward-going, gregarious, uninhibited person, then you're more likely to go regularly, say every day or twice a day. But if you're inhibited and a bit reticent and shy, then it's more likely that you'll be one of those once-a-week persons. It doesn't say whether your personality determines what your bowels do or whether your bowels determine what your personality does, and that's a very interesting point. Yeah. But I thought it was an interesting paper.
Yeah. Didn't the Greeks say, your bowels sort of run and rule everything. Am I
Well, they might
correct?
have done. That's probably why they take so much oil in their diet. I don't know. But certainly the bowels aren't the be-all and end-all. We do need to look after them because if they're working normally, we feel good. And you mentioned earlier this fibre intake makes us fit externally.
Yeah.
And that's very largely true because if people with very high blood cholesterols have a look at themselves, they're quite likely to have these yellowish, waxy deposits around the eye because of cholesterol. People who have gallstones, again more likely, and people who don't eat a lot of fibre, they might get jaundice, so their eyes might be a bit yellow, their skin may be yellowed. If they're not eating enough iron, then they may look pale and waxy. So, what you eat can determine how you look. And if you feel good and feel healthy, you're more likely to look good as well.
Exactly. Have you ever been to Northern Ireland before, Hilary?
I have.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what were you doing here before?
Well, I did the Jerry Kelly show.
Of course.
Yeah, I did that. That was fun.
I forgot about that.
And did we celebrate afterwards? Yes, we did.
That's dreadful. They're finished for the summer now. They've all gone into hibernation until September.
To recover.
They sure have. Today, as you say, you're over here to tell us all about fibre. I mentioned some leaflets which are available. And really, they do tell you everything you need to know. We could sit and talk here forever. But if you want copies of these leaflets, you can write to Kellogg's Company of Great Britain, Limited, Manchester, M32 8RA. I have that address. If you want it, just give me a ring. There's a little pamphlet entitled As Regular as Clockwork, Good Beginnings, The New You, indeed, a guide to low-fat living, and that important one for those of you thinking of starting a family about the importance of folic acid. Well, Hilary, we have to say goodbye, but before you go, you're going straight back to get on a plane, go back to London, then to drive home, hopefully to spend some time with the family.
Indeed.
Maybe.
Yeah, do my bit, doing the nap. Stick him in the bar, give them a bottle, tuck them in,
Good.
and say goodnight until, at least 2 hours later when they wake up again.
And up tomorrow morning, way back to television. What are you talking about tomorrow?
We're talking holiday health tomorrow. So all this week we'll be talking about what to do with vaccinations you need and the sort of what to put in your first aid kit and what to do sort of with regional things like bad water and how to sterilise the water and what to eat and what not to eat.
May I ask you, off the top of my head, if one suffers dreadfully from holiday tummy or sheer simple diarrhoea on holidays, are you a believer in immediately starting some form of tablet? I mean, I never go anywhere without the one beginning with I going on holiday. Some people have said to me, that's not really a very good idea because, it can cause problems.
The thinking there is that if you've got diarrhea, it's the body reacting to something nasty that you've eaten, right? Now, if you take tablets to bung you up, what you're doing is you're incubating the germs inside for longer. So theoretically, the germs are inside you somewhere. The tablets will stop the diarrhea, yes, but that's not always such a good thing. By nature's way is often the best way, and having a little bit of diarrhea for a couple of days isn't going to kill you. Having said that, if you've got a lot of pain and the diarrhea is profuse and you can't do anything, then obviously those tablets are sometimes worth taking. It's a decision which different GPs would disagree on.
Yeah,
but basically, it depends really on how bad the symptoms are. If it's very, very bad, then sure, you need something. But on the whole, if it's just mild, let it go, as they say.
I love it. And another wee question. What are your feelings about taking youngsters to hot, sunny countries?
Well, I absolutely no reason why not. I mean, there are lots of young children in those countries living quite happily, but of course they know what the local conditions are like, and you don't see them running around in the midday sun. You don't see them playing on the rocks or playing in the sea under the full heat of the 2 o'clock sun in the Mediterranean because they know better. The trouble is with British youngsters, they obviously enjoy playing on the rocks and playing on the beach, and they will quite happily get burnt as anything, not knowing how bad it's going to be a few hours later. And their parents let them. They should certainly go and enjoy a hot holiday in sunny climes, but they should be wearing lots of sun protection cream. They should be wearing hats and T-shirts the hottest part of the day and drinking plenty of fluid. And if they do that, they'll have a jolly good time. But if they don't, they may suffer badly.
Absolutely. So no need to watch GMTV tomorrow. We've got all the information here today.
I might have a few other tips as well.
Oh, all right then. We'll watch just for a change. Hilary, it's been a pleasure talking with you in the flesh, as I say.
Thank you, Lynda.
And I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future